Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Thursday, the 23rd of January 2025. Free trade. Sri Lanka government to continue with the free trade agreement with Singapore. Deputy Minister of Finance calls for a better framework to review future FTAs. Food security. Government calls for accurate data for making policy decisions on food security. Seeks to establish an essential food information system and national food security policy. Austerity measures. New directives issued for ministry operations. Ministers limited to 2 official vehicles. No family members on personal staffs. The stock milestone. Colombo Stock Exchange surpasses 17,000 points for the first time in history.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama, Kiren Perata. ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
කණ්ඩ පරිස්සම් කරගත්තොත්
අපි පරිස්සම්.
Asian Paints Causeway Aquasafe වැස්සත් මට්ටුවෙන් ගෙදරත් තිස්නේ.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana. I'm Taridu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. In your top story tonight, a new set of directives have been issued by the Secretary to the President regarding the operations of government ministries. According to the new directives, ministers will only be provided with 2 official vehicles. Moreover, ministers will only be allowed 15 members of personal staff and they will not be able to appoint family members or relatives to these positions. Secretary to the President Dr. Nandika Sanat Kumar Nayaka has issued a comprehensive set of directives to secretaries of all ministries to facilitate the initiatives of the ministers of the new government and strengthen the policy-making process. The directives allow each minister to appoint an advisor and a team to take policy decisions within the purview of their ministry. The team must consist of scholars, researchers, professionals, representatives of civic organizations or public representatives. Additionally, a minister will only be able to appoint 2 advisors on a full-time basis. Allowances and facilities are to be granted as per state administrative circulars based on their education, professional qualifications and experience. A minister can only appoint 15 members of staff to ensure the efficient execution of their functions, while a deputy minister can only appoint 12 members of staff. The directives specify that family members or relatives are not to be appointed to these staffs. Meanwhile, only 2 official vehicles will be given for ministers and deputy ministers, and a maximum of 900 litres of fuel per month will be allocated for those vehicles. Furthermore, only 4 official telephones will be provided to ministers and deputy ministers. Accordingly, government has allocated around 20,000 rupees to provide landline telephones and around 10,000 rupees to provide mobile phones for each minister. The directives are effective from the 6th of January 2025.
Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙන් මනාපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Deputy Minister of Finance and Planning Dr. Harshana Suryaperuma stated that government has decided to proceed with the free trade agreement with Singapore. Speaking during a recent meeting of the Committee on Public Finance, the Deputy Minister affirmed that in future free trade agreements must be designed and reviewed with a better policy framework to mitigate the negative impacts of market shocks. The free trade agreement with Singapore was signed in January 2018 through a cabinet decision and came into effect in May 2018. However, the decision was overruled and the implementation of the agreement was put on hold until 2023. In 2023, again through a cabinet decision, permission was given to resume the tariff liberation program under the Singapore-Sri Lanka FTA. The FTA envisages a phased reduction of import duties and para-tariffs, which include cess and ports and airports development levies over 5 and 6 year periods. Import duties have been lowered on 2 sets of HS codes already. The current items relate to the first set of goods on which the port and airport levy is lowered. Government members of the Committee on Public Finance had asked to study the matter when it was previously taken up by the committee.
ගරුම් ඇමතුමන්ලා දෙදෙනාගේ මං විමසන්නේ එතකොට රජයේ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය වෙන්නේ මේ වැඩේ මේක ඉස්සරහට මේ විදිහට අරගෙන යන්න සිංගප්පූරුව සහ ශ්‍රී ලංකාව සමග තියෙන නිදහස් වෙළඳ කිවිසුම භාණ්ඩ හා සේවා වෙනුවෙන් ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම සඳහා හේතුව
The reason for that is, as I mentioned before, this is a decision made by the previous government. Based on that, and some of this agreement has already been implemented, the government is in the stance of continuing it.
ක්‍රියාත්මක කරමු කියන පදනමේ තමයි බොහොම හොඳයි මොකද මම එදා විරුද්ධ වුණා ඔබලා විරුද්ධ
thing is this, right? So we always go for FTAs, certain team does it, but country doesn't have a strategy to capitalize.
මෙතන එතුමා පැහැදිලි කරා ගරු ඇමතුමා මේක 2018 ඔක්තෝබර් කොන්ස්ටිටියුෂන් කූ එකත් එක්ක තමයි මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ ආවේ. ඊට පස්සේ තමයි සිරිසේන ජනාධිපතිතුමා මේක නැවැත්තුවේ.
What we need to do from a policy perspective is to determine which industries are benefiting from these agreements and how we can educate the public and encourage entrepreneurship in these sectors. Something similar happened to the FTA with India, under which we have the permission to export many things, but no one is doing so.
We are lacking to use our concessional market access capacity. Utilization is 60%, 68%.
මේවායේ පොඩි පොඩි shocks එනකොට මේ agreement එකේ
When small shocks occur in the market, the maximum benefit that we expect from these agreements fall apart and we cannot get them. Therefore, at least going forward, we must design FTAs and review FTAs with a better policy framework to have FTAs that can face shocks in the market.
When this agreement is implementation, there should be a trade adjustment package. But that also, unfortunately, has not been brought it. But as Honorable Deputy Minister mentioned, Finance mentioned, if we want to go for FTA, we need to come out with
100%. I agree with him totally. Hari Hemanam, thank you. So we will approve this and we will send it to the House for debate.
The Sri Lankan government emphasised the necessity of accurate data and information for making informed policy decisions regarding food security, which it highlights as one of its top priorities. Consequently, during the inaugural meeting of the Food Policy and Security Committee, the establishment of an essential food information system and a national food security policy framework were taken for discussion. The Food Policy and Security Committee, jointly chaired by Minister of Agriculture, Livestock, Land and Irrigation K.D. Lalkantha and Minister of Trade, Commerce, Food Security and Cooperative Development Wasantha Samarasinghe, convened for the first time yesterday at the Presidential Secretariat. During the meeting, it was emphasised that accurate data and information are essential for making informed policy decisions related to food security, with government highlighting that it is unwilling to take risks by making decisions without reliable data. Consequently, establishing a robust data and information system was identified as a top priority. The Minister of Agriculture highlighted the need to provide rice not only for direct consumption but also as an essential resource for industries such as poultry, egg production and beer manufacturing. Additionally, the Minister emphasised the necessity of studying Sri Lanka's food consumption patterns to foster a healthier population and minimise food waste, and advised committee members to take appropriate steps in this regard. Several key areas were discussed during the meeting, including the establishment of a national food security policy framework, the maintenance of an essential food information system, the formulation of new strategies aligned with internationally recognized standards, and the development of plans to increase and distribute local production based on scientific evidence. The discussions also addressed food security, food pricing, and market management.
Fast track your career from O levels with eSoft.
ඩයබටිසෝල් සීනි වලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
ප්‍රයිම් ගෲප් ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වතාවට හඳුන්වා දෙන ලෑන්ඩ් ලීසින් ලේසියෙන් මීටමක්.
Single 1111 up to 60% off from the 11th November to the 17th of November.
කැලණි වයර් කිසිගින්නක් නෑ.
කිසිගින්නක් නෑ. කැලණි Fire Shield Wire.
Former Minister Anura Priyadarshana and 3 others who were arrested for allegedly misappropriating 6.1 million rupees of public funds were granted bail today by the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court. The former minister and his wife are accused of utilising funds obtained under the guise of providing relief to people affected by flooding, only to use them for campaigning activities in the 2015 presidential election. The Criminal Investigation Department arrested former Minister Anura Priyadarshana, his wife Dhammika Shirani Sumanaratne, Anura Seneviratne, who was the former minister's coordinating secretary, and former chairman of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation S. Amarasekara last evening. They were accused of misappropriating over 6.1 million rupees from the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation under the guise of providing relief to the people displaced by floods in Bingiriya and Narammala in 2014, and instead using the funds for campaigning activities in the 2015 presidential election. The suspects were produced before the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court earlier this afternoon. Investigating officers informed the court that the former minister's wife, who was acting as his private secretary, had requested that the Satosa Corporation provide dry rations for 2,500 families affected by floods. The officers claimed that the aid had not been distributed to the relevant families but had been used for campaigning activities in the 2015 presidential election and requested that the suspects be placed under remand custody. However, President's counsel Kalinga Indatissa, who represented former Minister Anura Priyadarshana, stated that the investigations pertaining to this matter were conducted in accordance with a complaint received by the Anti-Corruption Committee, which he claimed was established unlawfully in 2015. He further highlighted that the initial B report regarding the matter did not mention the suspects and that the certificate required to be submitted by an officer of the rank of Assistant Superintendent of Police or higher, pursuant to the provisions of the Public Property Act, had not been submitted. Finally, the President's counsel, who pointed out that the initial reports of the investigation had been submitted to the Attorney General 10 years ago, queried why it took such a long period of time for legal action to be taken against these suspects. When the magistrate directed these questions to the investigating officers, they responded that the arrests were made at the time they were in accordance with the Attorney General's directives. Subsequently, President's counsel Nalinda Indatissa, who represented former Minister Anura Priyadarshana's wife, submitted several photographs to court proving that the dry rations obtained from the Satosa Corporation had been disbursed to people affected by floods. After considering the facts presented, Colombo Additional Magistrate Harshana Kakunawala ordered that the suspects be released on bail, taking into account the extended time period taken for the investigation, the delay in naming suspects, the absence of the certificate required under the Public Property Act, and facts not being presented, claiming that the suspects being released would hinder further investigations as exceptional circumstances. Accordingly, the suspects were released on 2 personal bails of 2.5 million rupees each and were barred from foreign travel. The matter will be taken for consideration again on the 6th of May. In further legal updates, the Colombo High Court has moved to the 21st of February its decision on whether to continue the case against former Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwat Cabral over the 2012 investments in Greek Treasury bonds. The Bribery Commission had filed the case against 5 defendants, including former Governor of the Central Bank, Ajit Niwat Cabral, alleging that the defendants have caused a loss of over 1.8 billion rupees to the Sri Lankan government through investments in Greek Treasury bonds in 2012. The case was taken for consideration today before Colombo High Court Judge R.S.S. Sapuvida. The defence attorneys had previously filed preliminary objections stating that the case cannot be maintained. Accordingly, the Bribery Commission submitted written submissions today in reply related to those preliminary objections. Afterwards, the court stated that the decision related to the written submissions will be issued on the 21st of February. 3 suspects have been arrested in connection with the major racket involving the resale of e-tickets for up-country train journeys, including Alla Odyssey. A technical officer of the Department of Railways was arrested in Trincomalee yesterday by the Criminal Investigation Department, along with 92 e-tickets intended for resale at higher prices. The Kandy Divisional Crimes Unit meanwhile arrested a 37-year-old in Suduhampola Candy, while in possession of 21 luxury tickets for the Alla Odyssey, purchased online, 130,670 rupees in cash, believed to be proceeds from the illegal sales, and 130 notepads documenting previous transactions. Meanwhile, another suspected to be connected with the racket was arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department in Matale. In Parliament today, Independent MP Dr. Ramanathan Archana announced his support for the opposition effective immediately, citing government's inaction despite several complaints being made regarding the breach of his privileges. In response, the chief opposition whip stated that with MP Archana's decision, the opposition would ensure that appropriate time and space are allocated to him going forward. Meanwhile, in light of the controversial issues surrounding food prices for MPs in the Parliament's cafeteria, the House Committee approved a cost-reflective pricing structure effective immediately. Various opinions have been expressed on multiple occasions regarding the prices of food and beverages offered to members of Parliament. A controversial situation arose in Parliament yesterday regarding the issue.
Despite the Clean Sri Lanka project, it is clear that government's MPs are taking advantage of the Parliament cafeteria. I am not criticizing the act of eating, but previously you were opposed to such practices. An MP has stated that the government MPs are having 3 meals a day from the Parliament cafeteria and are even taking food home. We do not operate that way. I propose that all meals, including tea and snacks, be priced according to a cost-reflective system. The House Committee will convene tomorrow to approve this proposal.
Accordingly, the House Committee of Parliament convened today and approved an increase in the prices of food and beverages. The changes include increasing the price of breakfast from 100 to 600 rupees and the price of lunch from 300 to 1,200 rupees. Additionally, the price of tea and snacks has been raised from 50 to 200 rupees. Meanwhile, the debate on the vehicles used by ministers and the residences allocated to former presidents took centre stage today at Parliament.
සවැනි පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂ මන්ත්‍රීවරුන් සඳහා වාහන ලබා දීමක් සිදු කර නොමැත සිදු කළා නැහැ.
I accept the words you spoke in this house as Prime Minister. However, a minister in this government is using a Range Rover. I do not wish to name them, but should I say the name? It is Minister Vasantha Samarasinghe.
Prime Minister, we cannot accept your statement regarding this issue. It seems that most of the vehicles we saw at Goldface are used by government MPs. You came to power promising that these practices would end.
ඇමතිවරුන් අපි සියලු දෙනාටම වාහන අපි අමාත්‍යාංශ වලින් ලබාගෙන තියෙනවා. නමුත් මම මේකත් කියන්න කැමති ගරු කතානායකතුමනි. අපි මමත් ඇතුළුව අපි අමාත්‍යාංශ වලට ගිහිල්ලා බලනකොට අපිට පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් තිබ්බ වාහන මොකෝ අපිට ඕන වුණා ඒවා අර ලක්ෂරි ඒවා නැතුව ෆුවල් පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් පරිසරයට හානි නොවන පරිසරයට අඩුම හානියක් තියෙන වාහන තෝරගන්න අපි යනකොට ඒවයි වාහන ඔක්කොම තිබ්බේ V8 Benz BMW වැනි වාහන තමයි වැඩිපුර තිබ්බේ. අපි ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් හැටියට තීරණය කළා තියෙන්නේ අමාත්‍යවරුන්ට වාහන අවශ්‍යයි. නියෝජ්‍ය අමාත්‍යවරුන්ට වාහන අවශ්‍යයි. ඒගොල්ලෝ වැඩ කරන්න ඕනේ. අපි කොයි වෙලාවකවත් වාහන පාවිච්චි කරන එක ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කළා නෑනේ. නිල වශයෙන් ඒ වාහන පාවිච්චි අපි ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කළා නෑ කොතනකවත්. එතකොට ඒ නිල වශයෙන් පිට ගත හැකි ගත යුතු වාහන අපි පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ඒක ගැන අපිට කිසිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ.
It has been 64 days since the inauguration of the new parliament and 36 days since I complained about my privileges being breached. We are here to represent the people, but I have not been given any time to speak. I have not even had the chance to raise my concerns. As of today, I will no longer support the government and will stand with the opposition.
I have clearly stated that not allocating time to an MP is against the principles of democracy in this house. This decision is being made by the opposition leader, the chief opposition whip and other opposition leaders.
I even wrote a letter to him regarding this matter and he should respond. I have been defamed as an LTTE member. If I am, then arrest me or shoot me. No security or vehicle has been provided to me so far. If I am killed, this government should be held responsible.
Then MP has stated he will support the opposition from now on. It is our duty to allocate him time and space in Parliament. If he agrees, we will gladly allocate him time from now on.
අපේ කාර්යභාරය. ඒවට එකඟ වන්නේ නම් අපි කිසිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. අපි ඒ කාලය ලබා දෙන්න මෙතෙන් පටන් ක්‍රියා කරන්න අපිට පුළුවන්කම තිබෙනවා.
ජනතාවට ලබා දෙන්නේ කොතරම් ආර්ථික නිදහසක්ද මේ කොතරම්
I will present the facts and figures showing how much we can reduce the burden on the public. The total value of the residences allocated to former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is 2.598 billion rupees and he has vacated it. The residence allocated to former President Ranil Wickremesinghe, located on 1 acre and 28.7 purchase of land, is valued at 3.132 billion rupees and he has vacated it. The residence of the late President's wife Hema Premadasa, valued at 933.6 million rupees, was vacated in 2023. Former President Maithripala Sirisena's residence, including land and property, is valued at 1 billion rupees and he still resides there. The land of the residence allocated to former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, located on 1 acre and 13.8 purchase in Colombo 7, has a market value of 3.128 billion rupees. The total value of the land and residence is 3.357 billion rupees. How much cost is being borne for the maintenance of these houses? For Mahinda Rajapaksa's residence, the government has borne a cost of 38.3 billion rupees. In 2024, 946,000 rupees were spent on maintenance. Can the public continue to bear these costs, and should they bear this cost?
ඉතින් ගරු නියෝජ්‍ය කතානායකතුමනි මේ රටේ ජනතාවට මේ බර දරා ගන්න පුළුවන්ද සහ බර දරාගත යුතුද?
And with that, here's a look at opinions expressed by politicians regarding former President Mahinda Rajapaksa potentially being evicted from his official residence.
A person must have gratitude. There was a time when families travelled with fear. Soldiers came back to their villages in coffins and we saw funerals everywhere. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa was the commander-in-chief during the civil war period. Therefore, it is acceptable to give an official residence to someone like him, and if we do not stand by a person like him, then how can we call ourselves a nation with gratitude?
මැච් එක දිනපු ගමන් ටීම් එකට දෙන්න පුළුවන් නම් ඉඩම් යුද්ධයට සම්බන්ධ වෙච්ච හමුදාපතිලාට කොළමෙන් ඉඩම් දෙන්න පුළුවන් නම් මේ සියල්ලට දේශපාලන නායකත්වය ලබා දීපු නායකයාට මං හිතන්නේ ගෙදරක් දෙන එක
If the current parliament believes that the former president should not be given privileges, a bill must be presented to parliament to abolish the law. We do not see any issues with that. However, what we will say is that none of the former presidents need these privileges. Granting them the privileges every ordinary citizen enjoys will be sufficient.
මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමාගේ මේගේ ආපහු අරන් මේ නිවස කුලියට දීමෙන් අර පොහොසත් රටක් ලස්සන ජීවිතයක් ගොඩනගන්න අතිවිශාල දායකත්වයක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒක කමක් නැහැ.
The Colombo Bourse reached a new milestone today, with the benchmark all-share price index surpassing the 17,000 mark for the first time in history. The all-share price index closed 1.17% higher at 17,025.99 points, while the S&P SL20 increased 0.71% to end at 5,183.96 points. Market turnover crossed 9.7 billion rupees. The banking sector was the top contributor to market turnover, followed by the food, beverage and tobacco sector. Foreign investors closed as net sellers, offloading shares worth 1.1 billion rupees. And with that, here's a look at the rupee exchange rates for the day. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining and have a good night.